Thank you, Rajput. We started with the innovation in pharmacy, followed by the innovations in invasive cardiology, pulmonary hypertension, then in hypertension and cardiology. I always used to wonder why innovation come late to tuberculosis. The reason is with tuberculosis, we give always the last priority. That's why we are having the last session. But I'm happy that innovation has started occurring in tuberculosis. I'm really feeling privileged to introduce the chairperson of the session. Like we always call the wife of President of India as the First Lady of India, so the director of the Patel Chest is always known as the first chest physician of India. He has done his MBBS and MD from KG Medical College. He is currently director of Vallabhbhai Patel Chest Institute. He was professor and head of Department of Pulmonary Medicine, KG Medical College. He was also director of UP Rural Institute of Medical Science, Safai. He has around 4 decades of clinical experience dealing with tuberculosis and respiratory disease. He got more than 13 awards, including UP Ratna Award and Professor Raman Viswanathan Memorial Chest Physician Award. He has more than 200 publications. Dr. Deepak Talwar, he is the speaker of this session. He needs no introduction. He has done his MBBS from MEMC, followed by MD from Patel Chest and DM from PGI Chandigarh. He is presently working as the chairman of the Metro Center for Respiratory Disease, Noida. He is in charge of teaching program DNB in respiratory medicine, and he has published a lot of publication. So I request Dr. Deepak Talwar to take the session.
The topic is recent advancements in tuberculosis, and it is obvious that we need advancements in tuberculosis, and more than us, nobody else needs so much. Because in our country, we are the contributors to the largest population of tuberculosis patients worldwide, to such an extent that almost every 1 in 5 case of tuberculosis, which is diagnosed worldwide, belongs to India. So what it means? It means that we are living under the big umbrella of tuberculosis, where despite the good anti-tubercular therapy, we have failures, we have relapses, we have development of resistance, and we have ongoing morbidity and mortality secondary to tuberculosis. This is a disease which is not only surrounded by the stigma of its name, but also it has tremendous other impact on the livelihood of the people, because it's primarily affecting younger population, people who age, say around between 25 to 45, which is the prime age where we work, where we earn, where we bring our livelihood and raise our families. So we need a lot to be done as far as this particular disease is concerned. We need a lot of things to be considered and required in the near future. We need to prevent it. Very importantly, the first step which whenever we talk about tuberculosis, what do we want? We don't want tuberculosis. And where is the vaccine? We are still using the ancient BCG vaccine, and there are no new vaccines which are yet available. Then comes the treatment part, or rather before treatment we'll come to the diagnostics part. We are still dependent upon smear microscopy as well as the culture methods to get the diagnosis of Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which we all understand takes time, as well as it takes a lot of effort, expertise in doing the tests. So more newer innovations in the diagnostics are needed. And finally, coming to the treatment, we have come to the acceptance of 6 months short course chemotherapy as the standard, gold standard for the treatment of tuberculosis. It still gets about 95% cure rates in the best of the situations, in the best of the clinical trials, and in the best of the research areas. However, it is much lower when we talk about reality and the real world scenarios, say about 85%. And we have a huge population of nearly about 40 to 50% of Indian population which is having latent tuberculosis, with a threat of 10% developing tuberculosis over the rest of their life. Outcomes. If you look at the outcomes, still we have quite good outcomes, but there are still failures. There are still people who will develop relapses, And there are people who will go on to develop resistant tuberculosis, and that is again one of the area where we are increasing the number of patients of multi-drug resistant tuberculosis in India, and what we need is effective drugs to treat them. Next, please. And of course, for this kind of a scenario of MDR tuberculosis, which ever increasing all the time, maybe we need more brand ambassadors will truly reflect the situation, what we have been seeing these days. And there is a lot of hue and cry about MDR and XDR tuberculosis. Primarily, it's a disease which is increasing in its occurrence. In freshly diagnosed cases, it is about 1 to 3%, but it is increasing to almost about 12% in patients who require retreatment for tuberculosis. The problem with tuberculosis is the compliance to therapy, which again is a 6 months. I heard that there is a problem in compliance to cardiovascular treatments, but it is also there for tuberculosis. Next, please. Next. Underdiagnosis of tuberculosis, as I said, is a problem, and in fact, India is considered as one of the main source of getting the tuberculosis diagnosis delayed. So what it means is most frequently the country in which the diagnosis of tuberculosis is missed is again in India. And primarily it is because of imperfect diagnostics available. The diagnostics which are there are not so good, and whatever are available, they are not in the level where they are provided to each and everyone. So obviously there was a need to get a newer diagnostics also. MDR tuberculosis, this is something which we are all the time hearing about these days. It's a big problem. And I do not know what are the exact figures, but the people who are seeing them, they are seeing it much more frequently these days. And perhaps we are reaching almost about 10% or 15% of our patients who are being diagnosed these days as a case of MDR tuberculosis. Next. And of course, the aim by WHO is that we need to stem the tide. We need to bring down this higher incidence and prevalence of tuberculosis by the next about 20 years. And if we need to do this, we are definitely looking for better drugs, shorter regimens, and of course affordable, cheap, as well as we need better diagnostics and preventive measures to prevent tuberculosis. Next. The pipeline is not very impressive, which we can understand because there was no need to develop anti-tubercular drugs as far as the West was concerned, till the time HIV struck. And when HIV struck, then there was a sudden surge of tuberculosis. And when there was sudden surge, then there was again the research was oriented more towards developing drugs for tuberculosis. So over the last part of the last century, there was a research going on to develop drugs. And if you look at this pipeline, it has basically either drugs which have been previously developed and now being tried in tuberculosis, or some of the new drugs which are being mentioned here. Next, please. One of the important drugs which have come out is these which are being shown here. And if you look at it, there are just 4 of them which are going to be available in perhaps next 10 years to us, out of which 2 drugs have been already approved by the various agencies worldwide. One is even available by US FDA, which is Betylaquin. Next, please. Yeah. So these are the drugs which are coming up and undergoing various extensive phase 3 trials. Next, please. And this is one of the first drugs, TMC-207, Betylaquin. And this is the drug which acts by inhibiting ATP synthesis. It has a low mutation potential. It has got a very faster killing. It is effective both in drug-sensitive as well as drug-resistant tuberculosis. And it is going into various trials where it is being combined with other drugs like pyrazinamide, clofazimine, and some other drugs, ethionamide, to either treat multi-drug resistant tuberculosis most of the times. It has already been approved by US FDA and is available in US. But however, it is waiting Indian approvals. The other drug which has already been tested is Delaminate, and this acts by inhibiting the mycolic acid synthesis. This is again a drug which is being used primarily for the multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. This is again one of the drugs which are primarily from linazolate group. And finally, we have another ethambutol group, which is SQ109, which is also undergoing various clinical research trials to get it. So we have just 4 drugs, out of which 2 are already being available, but not yet in India. So we are looking for these drugs, but at the moment we don't have anything. Next. This is again a rifampicin, one more drug, which is again an innovation on rifampicin molecule only. And it is difficult. To develop drugs for tuberculosis is difficult for two reasons. One is the pathways which needs to be inhibited are more complex. The bacteria tries to mutate in a way where it can overcome that whichever mechanism the drug is trying to act through, trying to kill it, and it becomes more and more hostile, develops more and more resistance. And second is, there are no research funding companies to develop research programs or research trials for these kind of drugs. Obviously, the money involved in this development of anti-tubercular drugs is far less than would be anticipated or expected in this particular area. Next, please. So what we have is some of the potent drugs which we need to use them more efficaciously. So whatever we have is quite good, but then what is the problem? We have problem with whatever the anti-tubercular drugs we have. And the problem is when we use these drugs, invariably there are some side effects which ultimately lead to either incomplete therapy, inadequate therapy, or lead to lesser cure and cure rates and more relapses as we would not accept them to happen, or rather which are not acceptable to us. The rifampicin, which is one of the most important drug to be used for the treatment of anti-tubercular drugs, which we all understand, has got certain issues. It has a lower levels, it has got subtherapeutic levels which are responsible for it, which is very common in Indian scenario. It's got serious tolerance effects, gastric effects, and it can also cause drug-induced hepatotoxicity. The resistance part, next please. Now there are trials which are trying to show that rifampicin undergoes autoinduction, by which the levels of rifampicin decreases and they become subtherapeutic over a period of time, and the therapeutic levels of rifampicin goes down. With this, what happens is that the patient gets lesser amount of rifampicin and its efficacy and effectiveness decreases. It has been shown that in Indian population also, it is responsible for what is called as slow responders, consequently may cause lesser amounts of cures and more relapses. Same studies are there. There are more studies which are trying to document this. And second important thing which is a problem is that rifampicin per se may be causing hepatotoxicity in 2% of patients, but when it is combined with INH and pyrazinamide, the hepatotoxicity may go up to the levels of nearly about 20 to 22%. So there is a significant hepatotoxicity which can occur with rifampicin and is one of the limiting factor in most of the patients when we see them with drug-induced hepatitis. So what does drug-induced hepatitis does to these patients? It puts us back because we have to stop their anti-tubercular therapy, all three drugs, and it takes invariably 3 to 4 weeks, during which period either the patients are covered with streptomycin and one of the fluoroquinolones, or they are devoid of the chemotherapy. And this predisposes a group of people to develop resistance, and also exposes to subtherapeutic levels of various drugs which are slowly being introduced after the patient has developed drug-induced hepatitis. This seriously jeopardizes the success of anti-tubercular treatment in this group of patients. Most of these patients have got certain factors which tells us that they are at risk to develop drug-induced hepatitis and other side effects with anti-tubercular drugs, as people who are elderly in age, those patients who are malnourished, patients who have got history of alcoholism, and many other factors by which we can recognize the group of people who are considered as high risk to develop ATT-induced side effects. Well, this is again common in women as well as in young people, more than 35 years of age, and whenever it develops, it is generally the drug which requires to be stopped. Next. So this is an important thing which is jeopardizing primarily the effects of anti-tubercular therapy. So what do we do about it? What can we do about it? Rifampicin is such an important drug that we do not wish the patient's ATT to be discontinued, and that the rest of the anti-tubercular treatment regimen should be carried on without rifampicin. So is there any alternative for it? And you would be wondering here that what is this black pepper plant doing here? This black pepper plant, which is a very common Indian spice, has got an alkaloid which is called as piperine. And piperine is one of the substance which, besides having so many other properties, is a bioenhancer. And this bioenhancer increases the bioavailability of many drugs. And among those many drugs, the very important drug is rifampicin. So what it does is, once the rifampicin goes through the gut into the enterocyte, it stops its efflux back, so keeps it inside the enterocytes, where it can present it through the blood circulation to the hepatocytes. And once it reaches the hepatocytes, it decreases its conjugation, increasing the levels of rifampicin available for the bactericidal killing. This kind of activity with rifampicin is quite analogous to what we see with imipenem-cilastin combination. Important thing to remember is that this has already been proved in various animal model studies that when piperine is added to rifampicin, then in mouse models with Mycobacterium tuberculosis, it has been shown to have an effective antibacterial killing by increasing the Cmax level, by increasing the intensity, concentration of rifampicin in the blood, and hence is more effective in controlling the Mycobacterium tuberculosis killing. These are the studies which have tried to show that the levels of rifampicin reached when the piperine in the dose of 10 milligram is added to the combination of INH as well as rifampicin and pyrazinamide. Then with 200 milligram of rifampicin, the levels achieved of rifampicin in the blood are 2 times than what we get when we use it with 450 milligram of rifampicin. So these studies, what they have tried to equate is that 200 milligram of rifampicin with 10 milligram of piperine is equivalent to 450 milligram of rifampicin. The levels of other drugs are not affected. It is only primarily rifampicin because it is working through the P450 enzymes in the hepatic cells. The levels of rifampicin which are increased by the piperine do not decrease over a period of time. So when you do the test on day 1, or whether you do the test on month 2, or whether you do it at the end of the therapy, the levels of bioenhancement through piperine on rifampicin remains high and above the levels which are required for the mycobacterial killing. These are the ones which are showing that even at the end of the therapy, the levels of rifampicin with piperine remain in the therapeutic range which is desired in the management of tuberculosis. Next, please. This is the combination which is available by Kedla in the name of Rizorin, which contains INH in the same dose 300 milligram plus rifampicin 200 milligram and piperine 100 milligrams, 10 milligrams. And it is combined with pyrazinamide and ethambutol in its usual dosages, or only INH and rifampicin with piperine combination available. This is targeting the dose of 450 milligram of rifampicin. So that means it will be a good drug at the weight band of between 35 to about 55 kg of weight. These are the clinical trials which shows much better cure rates as well as the response rates after using rifampicin along with piperine in the combination of same 6-month therapy, where the kit which contains all 4 drugs with piperine is given for first 2 months, followed by only INH and rifampicin with piperine in the rest of the 4 months. When do you like to use this drug? This is shown that, it's been shown next, yeah. It's been shown that if the patient is at more risk to develop hepatotoxicity, if you give this drug, they tolerate it much better because the dose of rifampicin is only 200 milligrams. If the patient has developed drug-induced hepatitis, when you reintroduce the drugs, then if there is a chance of rifampicin-induced hepatotoxicity again, then again you are trying to use this drug in this situation. So primarily either upfront in group of people who are more at risk of developing hepatotoxicity, like people who are elderly, malnourished, people who have got history of chronic alcoholism, people who have got chronic liver disease, who are at risk to develop hepatotoxicity, can be initiated with this therapy. Secondly, the group of patients who have already developed drug-induced hepatitis, when they need to be reintroduced on rifampicin, they can be given lower dose of rifampicin, 200 milligram added on with piperine. Next. So these are the indications with Rizorin which I have already discussed with you, which is rifampicin with piperine combination. The other thing is that, is there any way to shorten the chemotherapy less than 6 months? So there are trials which included moxifloxacin, and it showed some good data in animal studies and earlier studies, but then this is the trial which is being talked about, in which moxifloxacin was considered for 4 months versus a gold standard of 6 months antitubercular therapy. And the results have already come in. It has been published in New England Journal of Medicine in the last month, October issue, which showed that although the conversion was faster by adding moxifloxacin, however, it was non-inferior to a gold standard 6 months short course chemotherapy. So what it means is that even today, we stand at 6 months short course chemotherapy as the answer, and we do not have this moxifloxacin at the moment. It is still undergoing many more trials, but this is one of the most important trial which has come out to be negative by showing that it is non-inferior in any case to the standard chemotherapy, which is the 6 months short course chemotherapy. Next, please. Some of the novel diagnostics required in the diagnosis of tuberculosis, and we have 3 things which have come up: GeneXpert, line probe assay, and QuantiFERON Gold. So these are the kind of things which we are looking for. The next one. Yeah, next one. The WHO has approved all 3 of them initially, and all of the 3 available freely in India. We are using them almost every day in our practice. Next, please. And the GeneXpert, this is the flavor of this decade, which is just nothing but a glorified tuberculin sensitivity test. Only thing is that it doesn't get interfered with the BCG as well as the non-tuberculous mycobacteria. The answer comes within 1 day. But there is a strict warning as far as from the WHO and the rest of the global agencies is concerned, that in countries like ours, where there is a high prevalence, then it should be used wherever it is specifically indicated. So where we are specifically indicated to use this, when we are talking about, because GeneXpert report comes in 2 ways. One is whether Mycobacterium tuberculosis is detected or not, and second, whether the resistance is there or not. So if you are using for resistance, you need to use it for a retreatment cases. If you are using it for smear positive cases, then the sensitivity is almost 100%. But the question is that, do you need to use it in fresh cases of smear positive when they are already smear positive? No. So then you use it in smear negative. Now, since WHO has recommended, even in RNTC program, it has been incorporated and it is being done. But the paper finally from All India Institute of Medical Sciences has raised serious concerns about the antigen which is being used in GeneXpert vis-a-vis Indian population and its sensitivity and specificity, not so high as has been claimed by various studies where it is said to be between 95 to 100%. Line probe assays, which are molecular based assays and which are primarily for detecting multi-drug resistant and extensive drug resistant tuberculosis, where it is done against INH and rifampicin, and MDR assay and XDR assay, where we use it for aminoglycosides and fluoroquinolones. These are good whenever the specimens are positive, or from the cultures which have been done on the liquid medium or a solid medium, they can be subjected to this, and the answers come within 2 days, where you will able to understand whether the patient is having resistant organism of Mycobacterium tuberculosis or not. This has also been recommended by WHO and is being increasingly used to detect early the multi-drug and extensively drug-resistant tuberculosis. QuantiFERON Gold, on the other hand, is the test which is, I think I took it on the side that this is what is being spoken about, the skin test. This is just because we are detecting the antigen with the help of interferon gamma. They are also called as IGRA tests. And there is a caution on this not to use it for the diagnosis of active tuberculosis. Vaccines, we do not have vaccine. We have only vaccine to give it to children, infants. Beyond that, for active infection, for booster infections, we do not have any vaccines. 2 of the vaccines are already in the development, and they are in the late phases of phase 3 trials going on. So maybe in the next era, we may get new vaccines to come forward for us. So till that time, we do not have much as far as the treatment part is concerned. We need to use it more judiciously, and with whatever available we have, we can utilize it to the maximum to get the short course chemotherapy its maximum effects. With that, I would like to thank you all, and I would like to just submit that there was a little problem when I was speaking about the Gene Expert. I got into the Quantiferon Gold. So Gene Expert is being used, but then whatever is the controversy, it will come much more in future. We do not know about it. Thank you very much.
We know that we are very much delayed, but at the very outset, I wish Rajiv ji for inviting me here. Then I wish to thank Deepak for a very exciting lecture. Well, I have been associated with tuberculosis for the last 40 years. I know that it's a 100% curable disease. This I am saying after treating thousands and thousands of patients of tuberculosis. But you'll surprise, last WHO report, which came about 2 weeks back, 1.5 million people are dying with tuberculosis globally, 15 lakhs. Even in India, 3 lakh people are dying. And what I have experienced, basic issue why people are dying, because of 3 reasons. One, poor treatment habits. I can quote you for hours and hours. Even today, if I sit in OPD of Patel Chest, I can see daily 2-3 prescriptions, which is so wrongly written. I know no doctor wanted to write a wrong prescription, but I believe it is a poor teaching and training in tuberculosis and respiratory diseases. That's why this is landing up. Second issue is the compliance. Third, it is the toxicity, by which many people, they leave the treatment. That's why you know so many deaths. And in India, about 3 lakh people died even last year by tuberculosis. Well, TB really needs innovation. I can also share with you that the same treatment, if you provide to 100 patients of TB, not everyone behave in a similar way. I am talking even after writing a correct treatment, even a patient is compliant, but still what I have experienced in 40 years, that they behave differently. It means many things we don't know about tuberculosis. What is the immunology? What are the other factors? Why this is happening? But this is happening. I have seen, today I saw in my OPD, there's a one lady who came from Allahabad, a young girl came from, she was taking regular medication. She took regular, but still lesion is progressing. So many things are hidden. It needs innovation. And I must compliment Rajiv ji. Before him, I was very closely associated with his father. I have attended many meetings like this, when even the CSIR and the Cadila Pharma, when they inaugurated this, this molecule way back in 90s, I believe. I was one of the, there. And, certain questions are raised. I know that I still remember the senior Modi, the father of Rajiv. When he, after the inaugural function, he came to me. At that time, I was in Lucknow, KGMC. He said, "Doctor साहब, इसको क्या आप सोचते हो?" The idea is great. If you can reduce the dose of rifampicin by adding certain bioenhancers, it's very good. At least 200 milligram will become equivalent to 450. It can also bioenhance other drugs. So, more studies, although the CSIR or the other people have studied, and it is being used very commonly, it is being approved by DCGI, because drugs are, main issue is that whether drug is approved by DCGI or not. So drugs are being approved by DCGI based on the studies available. But I think still, I always shared with his father, I'm sharing with him, I've shared with him even before that it needs more and more studies to make it very robust. And I'm hopeful that with more and more studies, probably what question is being raised, that even WHO and everybody will like to be included in the trial. So with these, I think we are getting very late. With these few words, I once again thank the organizer, the Deepak, the Munjal, and Modi ji for giving us this opportunity. Thank you very much.